We all wonder what happens to our deepest connections when someone is gone. Well, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating scientific case study that looks at the incredible bond between identical twins and what one brother experienced after the other passed away. It's a story that honestly challenges our whole understanding of consciousness itself.
I mean, it's a question that really gets to the heart of things, doesn't it? It touches on our deepest fears and, well, our deepest hopes. And for identical twins who often share an identity right from the start, this question becomes so incredibly personal and powerful.
But this isn't just a personal story about grief, as powerful as that is. This is a formal, academic case study that actually documented one twin's extraordinary journey, and it tried to understand it all through the lens of real psychological and scientific ideas.
So to really get what this study is all about, we have to start with the people at its very heart. Let's set the stage and meet the Chard twins, because their connection is absolutely central to this entire thing.
So meet Mark and Darren Chard. They were identical twins, and when Darren passed away back in 2020, Mark started reporting a whole series of really profound experiences. We're talking visions, communications, the whole deal. And that became the focus of this very unique study.
So you have to ask, how does science even begin to look at experiences like Mark's? I mean, to investigate them seriously, the researchers needed a specific approach, one that's designed to study these exact kinds of phenomena with real objectivity and care.
And the key concept here is something called after-death communication, or ADC for short. It's the official term for a spontaneous experience where a living person feels like they've had contact with someone who's passed on. This idea is what gives us the scientific framework for everything Mark reported.
And while these experiences might sound pretty out there, they are surprisingly common. Research actually shows that somewhere between 20 and 40% of people who are grieving report some kind of ADC. So it's a recognized part of the human experience of loss.
All right, so the study took all of Mark's experiences and organized them into 5 main themes. Let's walk through these 5 manifestations, because they form the core evidence of the research, and each one adds another fascinating layer to this whole story.
The very first manifestation had to do with sacred geometry. So in this symbolic language, the square represents the material world, stability, the earth. The circle, on the other hand, stands for the spiritual realm, eternity, wholeness, even heaven.
Mark described these incredibly powerful visions he'd have during meditation, where he'd see the square literally morphing into the circle. And for him, this wasn't just some abstract image. The study notes it brought him a deep, profound sense of peace, like he was seeing the material and spiritual worlds come together.
Okay, the second thing that kept appearing was the image of a wolf. Now, in a lot of indigenous belief systems, the wolf totem is seen as a really powerful guide. It symbolizes loyalty, deep intuition, and protection, especially when someone is going through a huge transition like bereavement.
Mark didn't just see symbols, though. He reported direct communication. The study talks about how Darren would appear to him as this being of radiant, bright light, and he would deliver messages that Mark felt were deeply healing and actually made his grief less intense.
Now, the fourth theme the researchers picked up on is maybe the key to this whole thing, the twin bond itself. They came to the conclusion that the unique, shared identity between Mark and Darren probably amplified the intensity and the vividness of every single one of these experiences.
And then there's the fifth piece of data in the study, and this one is pretty startling. It was independent corroboration. A professional medium named Kenny Corris was brought in, and he stated, with no ambiguity, that he witnessed Darren's presence. He described him not as a memory or an echo, but as an active soul.
Okay, so we've got these 5 really powerful manifestations, right? From geometry to a medium's account, but how do we even begin to make sense of them? Well, the study didn't just document the events, it used specific analytical frameworks to try and understand them.
The main lens they used is something called transpersonal psychology. What's so important about this field is that it doesn't just dismiss experiences like Mark's. Instead, it actually studies them as genuine human events that go beyond our everyday sense of self, looking into things like mystical states and spiritual connections.
The study also brings in the theory of non-local consciousness, and this is a truly mind-bending idea. It suggests that our awareness might not just be locked inside our physical brains. It proposes that consciousness could, in theory, exist beyond the body, totally unbound by space and time.
Now, it's really important to understand the goal here. The study is not trying to prove an afterlife exists one way or the other.
The point is to take these experiences seriously as experiences, as profound events in human consciousness that are absolutely worthy of scientific study.
So, what happens when you bring it all together? You've got the personal experiences, the powerful symbols, and these challenging scientific ideas. What's the study's ultimate conclusion? Where does all of this lead?
The core conclusion is that these manifestations show what the paper calls permeable boundaries between heaven and earth, meaning, for Mark, these weren't two separate, sealed-off realities. His experiences suggested a point of convergence, a place where the two realms could actually meet.
And this really brings us back to the human impact of it all. At the end of the day, the study found that these phenomena weren't just weird occurrences, they served a powerful therapeutic purpose. They literally transformed the painful, isolating process of grief into what the paper calls an experiential portal for deep healing and a really strong sense of ongoing connection.
So this case study of one twin's journey, it doesn't give us all the answers, not even close, but it leaves us with a pretty profound question to think about. If a connection can be so strong that it appears to bridge the gap between life and death, what does that really suggest about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself?